On November 4, 1979, between 10 and 10:30 a.m., Elizabeth and Swift, political officer at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, Iran, calls the U.S. State Department in Washington, D.C. This was not a routine call but an emergency call which was going to give sleepless nights to the American government. Fear was clearly visible in Elizabeth's voice. She started saying in one breath that the Iranians have attacked and hundreds of Iranian protesters are climbing the walls of the U.S. Embassy and entering inside. The crowd is out of control and the embassy can be captured at any time. Elizabeth Swift was still on the phone when the Iranians attacked. The first floor of the embassy was set on fire. The U.S. staff was afraid that American secret documents might get into the hands of this mob, hence the staff was hastily destroying the important documents. Elizabeth Swift's last words before the call was disconnected were, "We are going down." Around 400 student protesters. In the next few minutes they captured the U.S. Embassy and made the 68 Americans present their hostage. They were blindfolded and their hands were tied with ropes, then they were paraded in the streets of Tehran. That day the whole world could see how the crowd was humiliating the American diplomats and shouting slogans for their death. I was watching how Iran, which used to dance at the behest of superpower America, had brought America to its knees, but what happened due to which Iran made American diplomats hostage, how America freed some of its diplomats from Iran's captivity on the pretext of a fake Hollywood film. What was this? The entire Iranian hostage crisis, which lasted 444 days and is considered one of the largest hostage crises in history.
We are deeply concerned about the inhuman and degrading conditions imposed on the hostages. From every corner of the world, nations and people have voiced their strong revulsion and condemnation of Iran, and have joined us in calling for the release of them.
Saw the rapid modernization of Iran under the Shah. He promoted railways, schools and industries and implemented secular reforms such as restrictions on niqab for women. However, his strict policies soon angered tribal leaders and clerics. One reason for people's resentment was that despite the change in power, Iran was still under interference from foreign powers like Britain due to its geographical importance and oil reserves. Britain had established its monopoly on Iranian oil by establishing the Anglo-Persian Oil Company here. Britain's hold on Iran was so strong that Reza Shah Pahlavi came to power only because of Britain's support. Reza Shah is removed from the throne and his 21-year-old son Mohammad Reza Pahlavi is made the new Shah of Iran. He inherited a country that was struggling with tribal divisions, colonial influence and economic problems. Despite having large reserves of oil, poverty was at its peak in the country. The Iranian people, who should have got the real benefits of Iran's resources, were being looted by foreign powers. But Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, like his father, kept watching silently with his hands folded. But a new turn came in this story when on April 28, 1951, Mohammad Mossadegh was made the Prime Minister of Iran. Mossadegh was a nationalist and as soon as he became Prime Minister, he nationalized all the oil resources of Iran. Due to which Britain's control over Iran's oil reserves ended overnight. Due to this, Mossadegh became the hero of the people of Iran, but Britain was not happy with him and wanted to remove him from the way. By now, America had also become quite powerful and after World War II, it started fighting in every conflict going on all over the world. In such a situation, in August 1953, America's intelligence agency CIA along with British agency MI6 arrests Mossadegh and ousts him from power, due to which Mohammad Reza Pahlavi comes back to power. This time Mohammad Reza got the throne of Iran at the mercy of America. So he started dancing to the tunes of America. The people of Iran also started seeing Shah as a puppet of America, after which people started speaking openly against Shah and his policies. To reduce the opposition, Shah implemented the White Revolution in 1963, but the anger of the people could not be reduced. At the same time, Shia Muslim religious leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was becoming quite popular in Iran and he was opposing the Shah's secular policies, calling it an attack on Islamic traditions. Ayatollah Khomeini was targeting America as well as Shah. Due to this, Shah's government arrested him in 1963 and sent him into exile in 1964. But even while living in exile, Ayatollah Khomeini's influence did not diminish. He became a symbol of resistance, and his anti-Shah messages were spread throughout Iran through audio cassettes and tapes, due to which the opposition started uniting. And within no time such an environment was created against the Shah and America, which would lead to Marxists. Everyone from students to religious leaders were brought together and stood together. He believed that America was the root of all Iran's problems. By the end of 1978, there were massive protests against the Shah. People started burning American flags at various places and raising slogans like "Shah is the US puppet, down with the Shah." Shah was battling cancer at that time. When the protests became uncontrollable, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi fled Iran on January 16, 1979. The very next month, on February 1, 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini finally returns to Iran from exile after 15 years, and is warmly welcomed by a crowd of about 5 million people. Within a few days, monarchy is completely abolished from Iran. Supporters of Ayatollah Khomeini take over major government institutions and declare Iran an Islamic republic. Shah was in bad condition after leaving Iran. But the condition of Shah, who was suffering from cancer, was worsening day by day. The government that came at that time was afraid of giving entry to Shah in America because they had received intelligence inputs that doing so could lead to rebellion against America in Iran. But in October 1979, under pressure from people like former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and banker David Rockefeller, U.S. President Jimmy Carter allows Shah to come to America for medical treatment. What happened as feared? Massive demonstrations erupt in Tehran and people start shouting, "Death to America." There was so much resentment in Iran against Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi that the Islamic government led by Ayatollah Khomeini clearly asked America to hand over the Shah to Iran, but America refused to do so. After this, the protesters became enraged. Protest is no longer limited to just slogans, but protesters also start gathering to target the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. On February 14, 1979, protesters also tried to enter the U.S. Embassy, but were stopped with the help of soldiers. On November 4, 1989, around 10 in the morning, about 400 Iranian students gathered outside the U.S. Embassy, claiming to be followers of Ayatollah Khomeini. Within a short time, the crowd grew out of control and jumped over the walls of the U.S. Embassy. Troops were also present, but they did not have orders to fire. American President Jimmy Carter wanted the matter to be resolved without any major violence, and it would be easy to find a diplomatic solution, but the anger of the Iranians had increased so much that they set fire to the first floor of the American embassy. After some time they capture the U.S. Embassy spread over 27 acres and take hostage the 64 Americans present there, which included diplomats, consular officers, administrative staff and Marine guards. After making the 64 Americans hostage, the protesters first blindfold them and then tie their hands tightly behind their backs with a rope. They tie them up and then start parading them in front of the cameras in the streets of Tehran amidst a crowd of thousands of people. Slogans of giving death sentence to the American hostages start echoing all around. Students filled with anti-American sentiments accuse the American embassy of espionage and call it a conspiracy against the revolution. The creator was declared a den of spies. Most of the students were from Tehran University and Sharif University and were filled with feelings against America that had been growing for a long time. The overthrow of Prime Minister Mossadegh and American support to the Shah was the root of their anger. The root of their anger was the attitude of Ayatollah Khomeini to their protesters. Silent approval was given. Ayatollah Khomeini not only supported this occupation, but he also called it a bigger revolution than the overthrow of the monarchy. Now Iran wanted to see America suffering. However, after a few days, it showed some mercy, and on the orders of Khomeini, 13 out of 64 prisoners were released. She was released by November 1989. After some time, another hostage was released due to some illness. These 14 hostages included women, African Americans and non-American citizens, but there were still 52 hostages left in Iran's possession. All these hostages were blindfolded and their hands were tied with ropes or handcuffs. They were tied and kept at different places. In this condition, they were rotated between rooms so that they remained confused all the time. Some's hands were tied so tightly that even their blood flow stopped. They were not allowed to talk to their fellow prisoners. The rope from their hands was removed only when they were given food, or they were given food had to go to the bathroom. The student protesters who made the hostages told them that they did not hate America but the American government. At the beginning of the crisis, they also faced death executions. Apart from this, a gun would be placed on his temple and he would be strictly interrogated about the activities of the CIA. All this was repeated again and again so that the hostages were robbed, and if they knew anything, they would reveal everything to them. During this period, the hostages had little or no contact with the outside world. All he could occasionally receive was censored family letters. In such a bad situation, many hostages became victims of health problems, and the mental pressure on them also increased a lot. He started feeling lonely. During the day, Iranians would stand in front of him with guns drawn, and at night he would barely get a few hours of sleep. And even in that he would have scary dreams of death. He had no idea when he would be free from here. Will he ever be able to return to his country or not? This question is also troubling him every moment. Due to all this, some of the hostesses got so discouraged that they even tried to commit suicide. There was no longer any hope for them to escape. This hostage crisis was being discussed all over the world. The question in everyone's mind was what America was going to do to free its citizens. America initially tried to solve the problem through talks. Initial negotiations were going on between America and the provisional government of the then Iranian Prime Minister Mahdi Bazargan. But these negotiations failed when he resigned on November 6, 1979 due to the growing influence of Ayatollah Khomeini and his failure to control the students. Seeing things worsening, Jimmy Carter sent former Attorney General Ramsey Clark to negotiate with the Iranian government. But Khomeini refused to meet him. Due to this, the pressure on American President Jimmy Carter was continuously increasing. Next year there were elections in America, and this hostage crisis was going to define his presidency. Due to this pressure, Jimmy Carter freezes Iranian assets worth $12 billion deposited in U.S. banks. And ban on Iranian oil imports, due to which economic pressure on Iran started increasing. America also removes all 183 diplomats of Iran. By now Ayatollah Khomeini had become the supreme leader of Iran, who did not want to leave any stone unturned in being strict with America. On November 4, 1979, while Iranian students were taking over the U.S. Embassy, 6 American diplomats, Robert Andres, Cora Lishek, Mark Lishek, Joseph Stafford, Kathleen Stafford, and Lee Shades escaped through a side exit of the U.S. Embassy and escaped being held hostage. Initially he wanted to take shelter in the British Embassy, but his attempt failed because protests were going on there too. Meanwhile, somehow the fleeing American diplomats contacted the diplomats of the Canadian Embassy in Iran. But diplomats John Sheridan and Ken Taylor come forward to help these people and give them a place to hide. When America comes to know about this through Canada, then the U.S. State Department and the CIA say that these 6 American diplomats hiding in Tehran will be taken out secretly by the CIA operative Tony Mendez, who was an expert in carrying out such tasks, made a plan that in the name of making a fictional science fiction film named Argo, those 6 American diplomats would be taken out of Iran in disguise. His plan was that these 6 diplomats would be part of the Canadian film crew. This cover story seemed quite believable given Iran's cinematic history. To make this plan successful, CIA operative Tony Mendez, along with Hollywood prosthetic makeup artist John Chambers, forms a fake production company named Studio 6 Productions, after which an office is opened in Los Angeles, after which a script for Argo is also prepared, in which a hero saves refugees in a war-torn area. The plot of the film was similar to the story of Diplomats. To mislead the Iranians, advertisements of this film are printed, and posters, storyboards, and press kits are also made. After this, in January 1980 Parliament gives secret approval to issue Canadian passports for those 6 people. Now it was the turn to execute the plan. For this, on January 25, 1980, Tony Mendez and another CIA operative whose codename was Julio reach Tehran with the fake passports of those 6 people. He also takes along some props, business cards, film magazines, and a studio copy of the movie Argo to make the cover story sound strong. After reaching there, he spends 2 days at the home of Canadian diplomat John Sherdown to train all 6 diplomats on the jargon of the film industry, the Canadian accent and their language. Everyone is taught the backstory and their roles are explained very well. Robert Henders was the director, Gora Lyshak was the screenwriter, Mark Lyshak was the transportation coordinator, Josh Stafford was the associate producer, Kathleen Stafford was the set designer, and Lee Shaps was the cameraman. In Diplomats, despite being nervous, they were getting ready for their roles. They knew that a single mistake could fail the plan and put their lives in danger. Having adapted to their respective roles, on January 27, 1980, all 6 U.S. diplomats along with Mendez and Julio boarded a Swiss Air flight to Zurich. When they arrive at the airport, all the diplomats are listed as Canadian filmmakers in their passports. They face several checkpoints where Revolutionary Guards examine their documents closely. During the check, the guards look at their passports very carefully. The tension of those who had fake Iranian visas starts increasing. They were afraid that they might be caught, but somehow their passports passed the check. After this, on the early morning of January 28, they boarded the flight. As soon as the plane took off, they were in the Turkish airspace. Breathless with the diplomats, the U.S. officials welcomed him in Zurich, and later he was taken to the U.S. military base in Frankfurt, Germany. The success of this operation is kept secret so that Canadian diplomats in Iran do not have to face any problem. On January 27, 1980, Canada also made its presence felt in Tehran. Embassy closed. Later, when this secret operation was revealed, Canada received a lot of praise globally, and Canadian Ambassador Ken Taylor was awarded the U.S. Congressional Gold Medal. At this time, America had succeeded in evacuating its 6 diplomats from Tehran, but the Americans who were held captive by Iran were still in bad condition. Every day was difficult for those 52 hostages. He didn't know whether he would ever be free or not. Even the thought of what kind of punishment he could be given if things went wrong did not let him sleep. When the hostage crisis in Iran dragged on for a long time and America's diplomatic efforts started failing, domestic pressure on the government of U.S. President Jimmy Carter increased significantly. Jimmy Carter could not take any strict action even if he wanted to, because Iran had openly threatened that if America took any strict action then they would set fire to the American embassy and kill all the prisoners. By April 1979, Jimmy Carter's government was completely dejected. In such a situation, President Jimmy Carter finally decides to take a risky step. So on April 11, 1979, in the National Security Council meeting, he gives green signal to the planning of a military rescue operation, which was named Operation Eagle Claw. This mission was going to be the first major operation of Delta Force, which was planned by Colonel Charles Deckwith. The plan was that 8 RAS-530C Starlin helicopters and 6 C-130 transport planes would take off on separate nights and meet at a desert landing site in Iran, codenamed Desert 1. The plan was that the helicopters would be refueled with C-130 here and the troops would be taken to another location, Desert 2. After this, an actual rescue raid will be launched from there the next night to free the hostages. CIA's in-country team was also going to support Delta Force in this mission. The mission that looked amazing on paper actually goes awry as soon as it starts. 8 helicopters were sent for the mission, but only 5 helicopters could reach Desert 1 in operational condition. That day, there was such a strong storm in the desert of Iran that some helicopters got stuck in dust and some got damaged due to hydraulic problems. In such a situation, there were now only 5 helicopters on Desert 1, and it was already decided that if less than 6 helicopters were left then the mission would not be carried forward. When this news reaches Washington, President Jimmy Carter and his national security advisor asked the president if the mission can continue with 5 helicopters. Delta Force Commander Colonel Charlie, who was present on the spot, became angry that when he had made it clear 3 months ago in January itself that the operation would not be carried forward without 6 helicopters, then why was there so much debate about it? In the end, Charlie Beckett had to shout no way. After this the mission is cancelled. All the planes start flying back, but then a major accident occurs. As the groups are preparing to return, a helicopter collides with a C-130 aircraft, causing a massive explosion. 8 U.S. soldiers lose their lives in this tragic accident. This failure was so big that the soldiers had to return, leaving their helicopters and the dead bodies of their comrades there. This failure not only deeply hurt America's credibility, but also ruined Jimmy Carter's political reputation. Iranians found dead bodies of American soldiers from the operation site, which they sent back to America. After this, Iran took even more strictness and dispersed the prisoners in different cities so that no other rescue attempt could ever succeed in the future. They were waiting for 52 so that they could go back to their home. On the other hand, the hostage crisis had also become a tool of Iran's internal power struggle. Ayatollah Khomeini used it to strengthen his authority. He sidelined leaders like Bazargan and Abul Hassan Bani Sadr, who became the president in 1980. The students, who were working independently in the beginning, gradually became proxies of Ayatollah Khomeini's agenda. They prolonged the hostage crisis in order to weaken the rivals by garnering revolutionary support. The American hostages had become pawns in the Iranian political power struggle. They were advocating to try them as spies while emphasizing on negotiations to stabilize the moderate economy. During this time, Iraq was under the rule of Saddam Hussein, who was seeing the ongoing conflict in Iraq as an opportunity. He had taken power in Iraq in 1989, and in Iran the coming Islamic Revolution was a big threat for them. Shia community was in majority in Iraq and Saddam Hussein was Sunni, hence they feared that the revolutionary words of Ayatollah Khomeini might instigate the Shia Muslims of their own country. Meanwhile, due to the ongoing hostage crisis in Iran was almost isolated from the world. It was isolated and its army had also become weak, and from here the Iran-Iraq war begins. This war changes Iran's priorities to resolve the hostage crisis, and the pressure on Iran to resolve the crisis increases. Now Iran was looking at the hostages as a bargaining chip so that they were able to get back their frozen assets from America and buy weapons to fight Iraq. The impact of the hostage crisis also falls on the U.S. presidential elections of 1980. The way President Jimmy Carter had diplomatic failure and Operation Eagle Claw was a disaster. It was in the elections Republican candidate Ronald Reagan became the central issue. He criticizes Jimmy Carter by calling him weak and promises to take a tough stance on Iran after becoming the president. Due to public frustration, Jimmy Carter's support reduced significantly, due to which he was held hostage on November 4, 1980. Ronald Reagan wins a landslide victory on the one-year anniversary of the crisis. Due to this, the hostage crisis had overthrown Jimmy Carter from power. However, later allegations came to light against Ronald Reagan, in which it was said that Reagan's campaign had secretly worked with Iran to secure the release of the hostages until after the election an agreement was made. However, no evidence of this was found in the subsequent congressional investigation. Meanwhile, when Iran, which was struggling with war and sanctions, wanted to access its frozen assets, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi died on July 27, 1980, making his extradition demand pointless and irrelevant in such a situation. The hope of ending the hostage crisis increased even more because the diplomatic relations between America and Iran were broken. Hence the US starts talks through Algeria to end this crisis. After the death of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran was also ready to compromise, so on September 12, 1980, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khomeini agreed to release the hostages with some conditions. They put a condition that America will return all the property of the Shah and the confiscated property of Iran back to Iran and will guarantee not to interfere in Iran in any way. After this, on January 19, 1981, the Algiers Accords are signed, under which America accepts all the conditions of Iran. The special thing is that the agreement was made while Jimmy Carter was in the White House, but Iran did not want to give credit to Jimmy Carter for ending the hostage crisis, so it released the hostages on January 20, 1981, the day Ronald Reagan took oath as the President of America. When the hostages returned to America after 444 days of captivity in Iran, they were welcomed with much fanfare. Thousands of Americans waved yellow ribbons to welcome him and hail him as a hero. This hostage crisis in Iran was a turning point in the history of America and Iran, which deepened the distance between the two countries forever. Even today, after 45 years, relations between the two countries are tense. If you like the video, then subscribe the channel and like the video to see more interesting videos like this.